So from the same record label that brought you Neutral Milk Hotel and Conor Oberst and the Mountain Goats and Superchunk and Dinosaur Jr., we have a dance record. Caribou's new album, Our Love, is the newest release from Dan Snaith. He is a Canadian producer and singer who has written under a few names so far. One of these is Caribou, of course. One of them, Daphne, and the other one after that is Manitoba. So his newest album and his fourth as Caribou is Our Love. Now just pay attention to that name. Pay attention to that album title, Our Love. I think that this album was made in the spirit of cooperation and of giving and taking and mutual admiration. And I think this is an album that's just as much for the audience as it is for the artist. It reminds me probably most of Hot Chip's last album, In Our Heads. Now, of course, these albums are very different, but what I think they have in common is the marriage of dance music and of pop sensibilities. Our Love is an album that has a lot of dance influence in it, a lot of four on the floor, get your groove on, shake your ass, but it also has a really good bit of pop influence into it. So a lot of these phrases are short and simple and sweet and easy to digest and accessible and engaging. And that's something that I think everyone could use at least a little bit of in their music, is having this tendency to want to be engaged. Unlike, let's say, Tom York's last album that just came out this week, which is not pop influenced at all. In fact, it almost defies to be engaged at all. It wants to stand there and say, "Don't touch me, I'm too smart." I think that Caribou is the exact opposite. Caribou is like, "I want you to dance, I want you to dance, I want you to dance." And I think that it pulls that off in a way that doesn't make it sound stupid or soulless or pandering or lowest common denominator, which in and of itself is a pretty spectacular achievement. I don't mean to compare too much to other artists, but last year Disclosure released Settle, and it really it was not only an enjoyable album, but it really had its own style and its own logic to it. And I think that's the reason why it was both a hit with the critics and a hit with just the normal audience. And I think that Caribou does the exact same thing with Our Love. Above all, this is an enjoyable album. It's a crowd pleaser. But I think that what really makes this album good is that it does so while being smart and being instinctive and not sounding forced. So you'll have a track like Can't Do Without You, which is the first track on here, and it does a good job of pulling you in with this hook, with this loop. It is impossible to get out of your head, and then just moves on there, pulls you into the album, and doesn't really let you go until the very end. And I think that my favorite moments on this album are actually probably the most abstract. So like the song Dive, for example, because it doesn't really feel like it has that same verse-chorus progression that a lot of this album has. But those were the most interesting moments to me, and a lot of this album actually marries these two things, where you have the immediately engageable and some of the more free-spirited, freewheeling tracks. And I think maybe the best example of this is the second track on this album, Silver, which has a killer melody, pretty much a perfect song. But I don't think this album is perfect per se. I think that if you have nothing to do but listen, I don't think that Our Love really is at its best at that point, because, as you know, dance music is often very repetitive, and I think that there are some parts of Caribou which could be shortened. But if you are an LCD Sound System fan or a Hot Chip fan, then you already know this stuff. You already know that these songs go on a little bit longer than they really need to. They don't need to be 5 minutes long. They could easily be 3 minutes long and convey the exact same message. But the whole point of that is that if you are going to be shaking your ass to this stuff, then you can at least do it and get into it and have that momentum going. And this album keeps this momentum going, and it's just, like I said, a lot of fun. I think this is probably a 7.5 out of 10. I definitely recommend it, especially if you're into dance music. But also, if you are just into pop music, you're probably going to find something here that you'll like as well. But I want to hear what you think. I want to hear if you think this album is good or if it's bad, or if you're still upset with what I said about Weezer and that past review. Let me know what you want me to review next. Any upcoming releases that you're interested in, I'll be sure to cover them. And if you thought this review was helpful, give me a thumbs up, or subscribe to this channel, or better yet, check out earbuddy.net, where you can find more reviews and longer form discussion like this. I think that's it. Bye-bye.